Vanessa stepped out onto the balcony of the grand house and watched as more and more people gathered for the holiday. This girl had always believed the world was a magical place and her life one endless party. Her parents pulled her away from her thoughts and dreams, and she reluctantly turned her head. Her dad and mom were very wealthy, and Vanessa had never questioned where it all came from. She simply adored her parents, who pampered her and never refused her anything. She had also never questioned who they really were until one day, it was too late. Unexpectedly, a fire broke out in the house. It spread rapidly, and people barely had time to escape. That evening, for the first time, the girl wondered if her parents had enemies or if they themselves were someone's enemies. In an instant, weapons appeared in the hands of Vanessa's father and mother. Her father urgently told the nanny to take Vanessa away. Barbara immediately grabbed the teenage girl and, closing her eyes, rushed past the burning sections of the house. She managed to save Vanessa, but it was all over for her parents that day. The girl was left alone. Tears streamed down her face, she couldn't believe they were gone. Barbara gently encouraged the orphan, promising that they could make her stronger even than her parents. Vanessa saw Barbara as powerful, not just in strength but in how she protected children in her care. Barbara told Vanessa she could also learn to protect children like her. At first, Vanessa didn't understand, she had just lost everything, but she trusted Barbara. So, she agreed to become her student. After that day, Vanessa spent the next 8 years at an Elite Nanny Academy, its location classified. Barbara Strike had taken her under her wing, raised her, and trained her. Now, Vanessa was much stronger. Barbara had become the director of the academy, and after years of lessons and training, Vanessa was finally ready for her first serious assignment. Shortly before Vanessa's visit, Barbara had been discussing a lucrative offer with a certain Mr. Paralan. The headmistress promised that with the proposed salary, they could offer the best employees, each with years of experience. But this particular client wanted someone special, someone who had never worked with anyone before. Barbara presented a list of employees next in line for first assignments. Mr. Paralan asked if they were all competent. The headmistress guaranteed that every graduate was proficient in early childhood development and psychology, as well as trained in first aid and self-defense. All employees could drive various vehicles and were trained in cybersecurity. Housekeeping, financial planning, and politics were also part of the curriculum. Then, Barbara asked why Mr. Paralan needed an elite nanny. Oscar Paralan recalled a conversation from 2 weeks ago with someone who admitted to failing their master and promised to make it right. But Oscar only wanted the ledgers, he was preparing to issue a bill to the guilty party. Then he said he'd call Jack, the man he was speaking to, when he needed his services. Right now, he just wanted more milk. Jack didn't quite understand, but Oscar clarified, his son Cody loved chocolate milk. Cody soon appeared, and Oscar noticed how nervous the boy seemed. But Cody took a bold stance and demanded a double portion from Jack due to his oversight. Oscar asked why he wasn't behaving quietly as promised, but Cody had his own requirements. Jack returned with a carton of milk, hands trembling. Oscar shouted that it was no longer needed, but Cody confirmed his order and grabbed the carton. Oscar picked up his son and was about to leave, still demanding milk. Back in Barbara's office, Oscar explained that the boy's mother was no longer around, and he needed someone to take care of the child. Barbara assured him the child would be in good hands and asked if he had a preference among the candidates. Oscar glanced at the folders and quickly pointed to Vanessa's file. For some reason, her resume caught his attention. He demanded that she be assigned to raise his son. Vanessa's specialty was cybersecurity, and Barbara asked if he had a large internet network at home. Upon hearing he didn't, she suggested someone else, one fluent in Italian, another skilled in self-defense, but Oscar refused to listen. He insisted on Vanessa. Barbara looked at him reproachfully but couldn't turn him down. He paid well. She called for Vanessa, who didn't take long to appear. Of course, the girl was nervous, this was her first assignment, but she believed she could do it. When she entered the office, Barbara stood with her back to her, slow to turn. Without facing her, she told Vanessa she had been offered a task. Vanessa, overjoyed, exclaimed she was ready, had been ready for a long time. Barbara interrupted. She hadn't chosen the task for Vanessa, someone else had. She explained that the client had chosen her personally. Going to the table, she pulled out a folder and announced the name, Oscar Paralan. Vanessa was stunned. She knew that name. It had been on the front page of the newspaper years ago. Paralan hit back. A mafia family. She was convinced they were involved in the fire that took her parents' lives. Barbara advised her not to take the assignment, reminding her she had the right to refuse. But Vanessa couldn't turn down her first mission, not after everything Barbara had done for her. Memories of the fire surged through her mind, and she still didn't know why it happened. She had long believed she'd never learn the truth, but now she had a chance. Barbara had promised to make her stronger, and now she was. Without hesitation, Vanessa declared she was ready to take the job. Barbara had her doubts, but Vanessa's resolve convinced her. The girl also considered that Mr. Paralan had a small child, an innocent. The child needed protection, and she was ready to provide it. She also hoped she might discover the truth behind her tragic past. Barbara met Mr. Paralan again and confirmed that the girl had signed the contract. Vanessa had already packed her suitcase and stood ready. As she arrived, Barbara called out Oscar's full name. He stood off to the side, avoiding eye contact. But he turned, and Vanessa saw the man she'd be working for. Oscar was young and strikingly handsome. She was caught off guard and forgot to greet him. Oscar broke the silence, asking Barbara whether the nanny could speak at all. Vanessa thought the question made him seem like an idiot. Then she extended her hand and introduced herself, saying she was pleased to meet and work for him. He returned the sentiment and told her to get in the car when she was ready. While he stepped away, Barbara pulled Vanessa aside to go over her duties. She reminded her not to reveal secrets, embarrass her employer, hack, or fall in love. Vanessa promised she would not let her mentor down. She already felt proud of herself as she headed to the car. The driver, Adam, greeted her and offered to load her suitcase. He found her cute and offered a bit of advice, not to let herself be scared. Cody was only 4 years old. Vanessa wasn't afraid of anything. She thanked him politely and got into the car. Inside, she saw Mr. Paralan with his son. She quickly greeted the boy, asking if he was Oscar's son. The child introduced himself as Cordell, but Oscar interjected everyone just called him Cody. Vanessa greeted him warmly, but Cody told his father he didn't trust her and that she smelled like oranges. Vanessa discreetly sniffed herself, confused. Then she asked where they were going. Cody jumped in, announcing they were headed to a large mansion in the City of Commoners. Oscar clarified they had recently moved from the south. Vanessa assumed that meant Chicago. She pulled out her laptop. Oscar told her there was Wi-Fi in the car and pointed out it had no password. Suddenly, Vanessa heard a click and noticed the lock on her door had dropped. Oscar explained they always drove with locked doors for safety. Vanessa disagreed. If something happened, unlocked doors were safer. She pressed the unlock button, but Oscar locked them again, explaining that if kidnappers tried to grab his son at a traffic light, it was safer this way. Vanessa saw his point and didn't argue. Cody leaned closer to her and asked if his father could also smell the oranges. Vanessa was distracted, thinking about the irony of having unsecured Wi-Fi while getting a lecture on security. Cody peeked at her laptop and asked what she was doing. Vanessa pressed a button, and the privacy window rolled down. Adam turned to ask what they needed. Nothing. Cody remarked that the new nanny was clever. Vanessa raised the window again and suggested to Oscar that he add a Wi-Fi password. He narrowed his eyes but agreed. Soon, they arrived at the mansion on the outskirts of Chicago. Adam told Vanessa to follow Oscar while he handled the luggage. Vanessa quickly took in the surroundings and was surprised: no guards, no cameras. Inside, Oscar told her that her room was on the second floor, second from the left. He explained to Cody that Vanessa would now be his main contact, but the boy protested he wanted to stay with his father. Oscar insisted that Cody should go to Vanessa for any questions. He didn't want his son getting involved in his business. But Cody was upset, thinking his father didn't believe in him. He grew furious, threw his drink on the floor, and ran out. Oscar explained it had been difficult for the boy since his mother's passing. Vanessa noted how attached the child was to his father. Then the girl asked if Cody knew what Oscar was really doing. In response, the man asked if Vanessa knew, and she immediately remembered the notes about his affairs. She admitted she had read some news but hadn't really delved into his business. Oscar, nevertheless, decided to be honest. He admitted that he was actually the deputy of the Paralan Mafia Don. Vanessa was well aware that being the right hand of the mafia head placed him nearly at the same level as the Don. Oscar went on to say he had more enemies than he could count and was sure they would do anything to get to his only son. Cody, as the heir to the Paralan name, was incredibly important. That, he said, was why he needed Vanessa to protect his child. The girl promised she would do everything necessary. This seemed to reassure Mr. Paralan. Vanessa immediately began to ask about her responsibilities and listed some things she could do involving cybersecurity, but Oscar told her it wasn't necessary. Her only task was Cody. She hadn't realized she'd be more of a nanny than anything else. She then brought up the fact that there were no bodyguards, and the staff should probably be checked. Oscar stepped closer and repeated that her only job was to keep an eye on his son. At that moment, Vanessa noticed a drink pouch Cody had thrown on the floor. Mr. Paralan added that since the boy had run off, she should go after him. Vanessa agreed and ran outside to look for the boy, but he was nowhere to be seen. Then she heard a quarrel, Cody's voice shouting. She turned and saw Cody being grabbed by masked men and pushed into the trunk of a van. Vanessa immediately gave chase, hoping to stop the kidnappers, but the van sped away too quickly. She stood there, watching the van disappear, horrified. Her very first day, and the child had been kidnapped. She turned to see Mr. Paralan standing in the doorway and panicked about how to tell him. For a moment she considered chasing the van again, but knew it would be useless. She ran back to the house to report. When she told him masked men had taken Cody, Oscar grabbed her by the arm and demanded they go after the car. Vanessa didn't hesitate, she also wanted to rescue Cody. Grabbing her bag, she asked for the keys, but Adam had already run over. He would be her driver and take her wherever she needed to go. Vanessa promised Oscar she would bring the boy back and told him to report the kidnapping to the police. But Oscar leaned in and said that wouldn't be necessary if she did her job right. The car peeled away at high speed in the direction the van had gone. Vanessa gave directions to Adam and opened her laptop, launching a program to track the van. She had memorized the license plate and was going to use her tools to locate it. Adam asked what she was doing, and Vanessa briefly explained her plan. She checked surveillance footage and confirmed the van had passed a nearby camera less than a minute ago. Everything seemed to be going too smoothly, she suspected it might be a trap. She gave more directions, left, then 2 traffic lights, then right. She began hacking into nearby cell towers for broader access. As she worked, she muttered to herself, prompting Adam to ask again what she was doing. Vanessa didn't stop. Soon she located 3 phone signals coming from a nearby building. When they arrived, she spotted the kidnappers' van parked outside. She instructed Adam to drive around the building and wait on the far side while she retrieved Cody. A bodyguard stood at the entrance, clearly trained, but strangely without a weapon. Vanessa approached and warned him she was trained and asked him to open the door peacefully. He leaned on it smugly and refused. Without waiting, Vanessa struck, bending her elbows sharply and delivering a hit to his solar plexus. As he doubled over, she followed with a swift strike to his neck. The towering man collapsed, dropping his sunglasses. Vanessa stepped over him and entered the building, finding herself in an empty kitchen. Grabbing a metal tray from a table, she armed herself. On the far side of the kitchen, she peered through a round window into a dimly lit hall. There stood a man and a woman, guarding a bound Cody. Without hesitation, Vanessa slammed open the door and stormed in. The two thugs took fighting stances. Vanessa swung the tray at the man, who ducked. He swung at her, but she blocked with the tray, causing him pain. While he recoiled, she aimed a heel kick to his face, but he blocked it and prepared to retaliate. Before he could strike, Vanessa smashed the tray over his head. While both assailants staggered, she ran to Cody, scooped him up, still tied, and fled the building. Outside, Adam cheered as she approached with the boy. Vanessa placed Cody in the car and hugged him tightly, then began to untie him, asking if he was hurt. The boy sat silently, bent forward, and Vanessa remembered sitting just like that after the fire that destroyed her home. She hugged him again and promised he was safe now. Then Adam coughed. Vanessa noticed he looked unwell and grew concerned until she saw a gun in his hand, pointed at her. Adam coldly told her to get out of the car. He ordered her to walk away, leaving the child, and offered her $2 million in exchange. Vanessa realized with horror that Adam was working with the kidnappers, or rather, he was part of something bigger. He clarified that he wasn't associated with the low-level goons Oscar had hired to test her. Vanessa understood now this had been a setup. Adam added that the boy had never been out of Oscar's sight and that now was the perfect moment to complete the test. Vanessa placed herself between Cody and the gun. She said she would never let Adam carry out his plan. He urged her to be smart and take the money rather than end up with a bullet in her head. Out of the corner of her eye, Vanessa saw her open laptop. She kept talking to distract Adam while slowly reaching for the device. Her fingers searched for the right button. When she refused again, Adam prepared to pull the trigger. At last, Vanessa pressed a button. The windshield wipers squeaked across the glass, catching Adam's attention. While he turned, she pressed another key. The privacy screen between driver and passengers rose suddenly and jammed Adam's hand, making him drop the gun. Seizing the opportunity, Vanessa pushed the car door open and fell backward, holding Cody close to shield him. She landed on her back, protecting the boy. Then she got up and ran, Cody in her arms, not looking back. She whispered reassurances to the child as she ran, that they'd be home soon, that he had been very brave. Approaching the house, she saw Adam's car already parked in the yard. Panic rose inside her. What if he had already returned and was lying? Then she saw Adam standing calmly next to Mr. Paralan, acting like nothing had happened. Cody wriggled from her arms and ran to his father. Vanessa stood frozen, realizing something was deeply wrong. Oscar patted his son on the head, praised Vanessa for doing an excellent job, and told her she was hired. In that moment, Vanessa understood every part of the encounter. Even Adam's betrayal had been part of the test. But he was just doing his job. Mr. Paralan remarked that he wasn't doing it very well, considering Vanessa had escaped before he pulled the trigger. The girl, although still a little angry, repeated that the doors in the car should not be locked for this very reason. Oscar agreed, and Cody even began to praise her for being fast. He hugged her tightly. Vanessa realized that Oscar had involved his son in a dangerous situation, but at the same time, he couldn't warn Cody. Doing so might have left the boy with psychological trauma. Oscar had wanted to test whether Vanessa could be intimidated or bribed, and he was satisfied with the result. He explained that previous nannies had failed similar tests. Vanessa promised to keep a close eye on Cody but asked Oscar to trust her. He refused. He didn't trust anyone. When Vanessa asked why, he admitted that his wife had disappeared a year ago. Then he pulled a small, blood-stained wedding ring from his pocket, the size fit for a woman. He added that the police had failed to report the truth. His wife had been murdered. Oscar's face darkened with grief. He even closed his eyes, overcome by the memory. Vanessa noticed how little Cody lowered his eyes, embarrassed and saddened by his father's pain. She gently asked Oscar not to talk about it now, since the moment wasn't right. Oscar understood what she meant and asked his son to return to his room. But Cody objected, saying he was fine and didn't want to go back. Vanessa glanced at the windows and asked which one was Cody's room. The boy frowned, not understanding why she wanted to know. Vanessa joked that it was probably the one with lace curtains. Cody grumbled that it wasn't, and Oscar clarified that his room was on the opposite side of the house. Vanessa guessed again, the one with flower pots. The boy groaned and dragged her by the arm, insisting on showing her himself. Before she left, Oscar reminded Vanessa to come to his office in 10 minutes. She nodded and followed Cody, with Oscar watching them go. Adam, standing nearby, commented that he liked Vanessa and warned Oscar not to scare her off. But Oscar believed that if Vanessa could be scared, then she didn't belong there in the first place. As they walked, Cody suspected that Vanessa had lied just to get into his room. She explained that she wanted to see where he lived to understand him better. This surprised Cody, no one had said that to him before. Vanessa was worried, too. Cody had handled his kidnapping far too well, and she was glad it didn't seem to affect him deeply. When they arrived, Cody explained the room hadn't been cleaned yet since they had only recently moved in. Some things were still left from the previous owners, children's things. Vanessa actually liked that. She told Cody he didn't have to show her anything if he didn't want to, but he shrugged and said it was just a room. Inside, the space was large and messy. Empty chocolate milk cartons were everywhere. Vanessa also noticed dozens of identical costumes, more than an undertaker might need. In one corner was a creative station, full of paints and paper. Vanessa thought he needed to cut back on sugar and maybe expand his wardrobe. As she looked around, Cody quickly hid some toys under a pillow, clearly embarrassed. He explained that the maid didn't like him much. Vanessa smiled gently, unsure how that could be. He was wonderful. She reached out to stroke his hair, but he pulled away and told her sharply that he didn't need a new mother. Vanessa didn't try again. She understood that no one could replace his mother. She told him she could stop caring if he didn't want her to, but he simply replied that she should just do her job. Vanessa played along, agreeing to follow his orders. Then he reminded her she needed to go see his father. Vanessa realized it was time and headed for Oscar's office. On the way, she reflected on how stubborn the boy was, but also how understandable that was. At the office door, she knocked lightly. Oscar invited her in. This time, Vanessa noticed he seemed different. In this setting, he didn't look like the deputy of a mafia don, just a man trying to protect his family. She informed him that Cody was in his room and asked if that was safe. Oscar replied that as long as the boy was in the house, it was safe. He admitted that he had pressured Vanessa earlier, but she told him she didn't mind. She promised to get to the bottom of everything, no matter the cost. She believed that the same people who killed Mrs. Paralan were now targeting Cody, and she was determined to protect him. Oscar confirmed that the threats had begun when his uncle, the mafia don, declared Cody as his successor. Vanessa pointed out that her contract hadn't mentioned anything about family threats. She added that such obligations weren't part of her original terms. Realizing Oscar probably hadn't read the fine print, Vanessa decided to use it as leverage. Oscar remembered she had self-defense training. Vanessa, however, reminded him she was freshly graduated. He should have chosen someone more experienced. But Oscar insisted he had hired exactly who he needed. Vanessa paused, unsure what he meant. Did he know about her past? Had he guessed she was here for answers? But Oscar only said he didn't want anyone else. He asked her what conditions she needed to stay. Vanessa realized this task was much bigger than expected. Oscar began offering compensation, increased pay, a house in Mallorca, political connections. Vanessa dismissed them. None of it mattered if she failed. Then she asked for full access to everything she needed. Oscar asked her to clarify. She said absolutely everything, insisting it was necessary to protect Cody. He was intrigued by her request. Her dedication struck him as selfless, but Vanessa corrected him, she just wanted to survive the mission. Oscar said there were some things he couldn't share, like business accounts or client data. Vanessa promised she didn't care about his criminal dealings. She wouldn't look where she didn't need to. The conversation started to amuse Oscar. He asked again what she hoped to gain from all this. Vanessa replied with a personal request, a glowing review. She was risking her life for Cody, and if everything went well, she wanted her work to be appreciated. She also asked that Oscar become the top patron of the Elite Nanny Academy. Oscar considered her request and found it modest. He promised to do it in a year when they left Chicago. But then he turned serious. He warned her that if anything happened to his son, things would be very different. Vanessa would regret not dying during her mission. Though she was not a fearful person, Oscar's threat chilled her. His face was so stern she thought he might hit her, but he didn't. He simply told her to make herself at home. Leaving the office, Vanessa knew he meant what he said. She could see it in his eyes, he wouldn't hesitate to kill her if she failed. But she reminded herself, elite nannies never make mistakes. In the hallway, she found Adam dragging her suitcase upstairs. She could have carried it herself, but Adam told her she'd been through enough. He was glad she was staying. He invited her to inspect the house after all. It would be her home for the next year, unless something irreversible happened. Vanessa couldn't tell whose side Adam was really on, but she followed his suggestion. The house felt like a palace. She walked out to the garden to check the security. Near the fence, she spotted a familiar face, the guard she had knocked unconscious during the rescue. She realized he must have faked it. The fence was 3 meters high, topped with barbed wire. She saw more guards patrolling, huge men like the first one. There were fountains and elegant features, but the space Cody played in didn't seem child-friendly. Vanessa decided she would take him to a proper park sometime. Back inside, she searched for her room. It was spacious and nicely furnished, but luxury wasn't on her mind. She needed to charge her laptop. But when she opened her bag, she froze, it was missing. She retraced her steps and realized she had left it in the car when she jumped out with Cody. Looking out the window, she hoped to grab it right away, but the car was gone. Oscar came into the room and invited her to dinner. Vanessa immediately asked about the laptop, and he promised Adam would retrieve it. She then asked about Cody and was told the boy would be dining in his room tonight. Vanessa wondered how often Cody ate alone. Oscar said he had been doing so a lot lately. She suggested it was due to his mother's death, but Oscar turned on her sharply. He didn't want her opinions on his son's emotions. He reminded her that her only concern was the boy's safety. At that moment, Cody stood outside the door, trying to eavesdrop. Vanessa heard the rustling. Oscar didn't notice and walked away. Vanessa realized Cody had heard everything, and it upset her. He was still just a child. She made her way to the dining room and was shown to a massive table. There was a ridiculous amount of food. Though she was hungry, it felt excessive. Mr. Paralan sat across from her, ready to eat. While looking at her, the girl, trained in etiquette, still felt a little uncomfortable. At the academy, she had been taught the art of small talk with employers, so she decided to initiate a conversation. Vanessa asked what had brought Mr. Paralan to Chicago. When he replied that it was just business, she found it a little strange. He wasn't part of the local mafia, and that particular syndicate had no influence here. She also knew the local families would not welcome outside interference. Vanessa suggested that a man with Oscar's status could make a lot of noise in the city. Her employer agreed in a calm tone, acknowledging the truth in her words. The nanny noticed that Oscar didn't seem to feel remorse. It was as if he didn't realize the level of risk he was exposing his son to. She kept the conversation going and asked about Oscar's goals for the coming year. He didn't quite understand the question, so Vanessa clarified if there were no major plans, perhaps she could teach Cody a language or the arts. Oscar hesitated. It seemed like he had thought about it before. He admitted that Cody needed to learn something useful, but also stressed that, as the heir to the Paralan family, he had certain expectations to meet. The door to the dining room opened, and a maid entered with a drink. Vanessa found the timing strange and suspicious. Everyone here seemed like shadows, and she had only really interacted with the driver. It was also odd that she was the only one invited to dinner with the boss. Still, she assumed it was a gesture for her first day and decided to go along with it. She asked what Cody usually did during the day and was surprised to hear that his father often took him to work. Vanessa didn't think that was suitable and declared that it would no longer happen. At that, she noticed Oscar's mood shift, his jaw tightened, and his fists clenched. Mr. Paralan ordered the maid, Julia, to leave and indicated he wanted to clarify something. Vanessa caught a strange look in the maid's eyes, reaffirming her feeling that something was off. Oscar rose and asked her to follow him. Vanessa wanted to ask a question, but he told her not to say another word. When they stopped, Vanessa quickly apologized for speaking out of turn. Oscar interrupted, saying she didn't need to apologize, he actually agreed with her. Then, surprisingly, he asked her to pretend to be afraid. She didn't understand why, but he repeated the request, squeezing her hands tightly. Reluctantly, she agreed. The guard then saw Oscar shaking Vanessa, and she screamed as if in mortal fear. Oscar quickly pulled her behind a tree and explained he only had one goal for Cody. He was about to continue when a rustling noise interrupted him. A moment later, a huge guard appeared, blocking the moonlight. Oscar asked what was going on and learned there were problems in the 3rd district. He excused himself to handle the matter, leaving Vanessa alone. She stood there trying to understand why Oscar had gone to such lengths to keep this conversation private. The next morning, Vanessa heard Cody speaking in a threatening tone. Opening his door, she saw him interrogating a duckling in dim light. It felt bizarre that a child so young was practicing intimidation, but she invited him to join her for breakfast. Cody declined, saying he'd eat in his room. Vanessa smiled and joked that he was probably afraid to eat human food in front of her. Cody looked confused by her term. She elaborated, playfully accusing him of being a vampire. After all, he never ate in front of anyone, and he only came out in shadows. Cody firmly denied the claim and said he just didn't want to eat with her. Vanessa responded that she'd already eaten anyway and the kitchen was all his. She left him alone but asked to meet later downstairs. Once alone, Cody was annoyed. He didn't understand why she wouldn't just leave. He looked at the duckling and told it to stop staring at him like that. After breakfast, Vanessa washed dishes and was glad Cody had eaten. On one of the plates, she saw he'd drawn a vampire face with fangs using sauce. It felt cheeky, but she smiled. At least he had an appetite. While cleaning, someone entered the kitchen. Vanessa turned and saw a woman in an apron. It was Mrs. Kenneth. The woman asked what Vanessa was doing there. Vanessa calmly explained that she'd be handling Cody's breakfasts and lunches from now on and promised not to interfere with Mrs. Kenneth's duties. The older woman noted Vanessa was good at cleaning. Reaching for a cabinet, nearly pushing Vanessa aside, the maid said Mr. Paralan wanted coffee. As she prepared it, she asked how Vanessa had slept. Vanessa lied and said it was fine, though in truth, she hadn't closed her eyes, haunted by the feeling she was being watched. Vanessa asked Mrs. Kenneth if she'd seen her laptop. The maid didn't understand the appeal of such devices and said books were better. At that moment, Oscar's voice called from the door, asking where his coffee was. Vanessa turned, surprised at how calm he seemed. She knew it was just an act. Oscar noticed her expression and asked if there was a problem. She didn't respond, only asking if Cody was okay. She still didn't fully understand Oscar's behavior last night. He had tried to tell her something about his son but had stopped. Outside Cody's door, she heard him once again talking sternly to the duckling and realized where he was picking up such habits. Since the boy was occupied, Vanessa returned to her room and found the laptop had been placed on the table. Eager to investigate, she began searching for information on Oscar. Opening a search engine, she typed in Paralan crimes in the South. She quickly discovered that the Paralan family had been running a mafia group for a century. Oscar's uncle was now the Don, having inherited the position after his older brother died. With no sons of his own, he made Oscar his deputy, and Cody was the next heir. It began to make sense why Cody behaved the way he did. Vanessa dug deeper into dark web forums. Despite his short time in Chicago, Oscar had already made enemies. She couldn't understand why he would bring such heat upon himself unless his business back home had dried up. Then she heard Cody calling her mad ant. The insult didn't bother her. She quickly closed the laptop and went to see what he needed. In his room, she saw the duckling stuffed into her laptop bag. Cody was searching for his favorite tie. He had a night event with his father. Vanessa realized he didn't know that Oscar wasn't planning to take him. She tried to find a way to explain gently. She suggested they stay home and play while Oscar handled business, but Cody was convinced his father needed him, especially since he was going to meet people who hated the Paralan family. That was news to Vanessa, and she wondered how he knew. Cody believed his presence made his father seem underestimated, giving them an advantage. Then, suddenly, he asked Vanessa to support him when his father came in. Oscar entered and asked Cody to stay with Vanessa. He wouldn't return until the next evening and believed it was safer this way. Cody was devastated. He tried to bring up what his uncle had said, but Oscar insisted he needed to stay at home. As Oscar left, he asked Vanessa to watch his son closely. She took the chance to ask him to stay a little longer. Oscar, puzzled, agreed to listen. Cody looked at her hopefully, thinking she'd ask his father to take him, but instead, Vanessa only requested access to the security system. Cody's heart sank. He felt betrayed and abandoned. Oscar didn't have time to address it and promised they'd talk later. As he left, Cody remained with his nanny, now bitter at the world. Vanessa tried to cheer him up by suggesting dinner, but Cody refused and told her to leave. She tried to comfort him, but he shouted at her to get out. Left with no choice, Vanessa exited. He slammed the door behind her. She understood exactly how he felt once. She too had been left behind, watching her house burn. That night, Vanessa couldn't sleep. Again, she was overwhelmed by the feeling of being watched. She searched the entire room for cameras but found nothing. Still, the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave her. Despite the unease, it was time to resume her duties. Glancing at her immaculate room, she couldn't shake the suspicion that something sinister was lurking behind its perfection. Vanessa stepped onto the balcony, drawn by the gentle glow of the rising sun. She lingered there for a few minutes, watching the city bathe in light. Returning inside, she sat down and opened her laptop, but before she could do anything, she realized Cody was already perched on her bed. She invited him to breakfast. He refused again. Vanessa offered to take him to the park after eating, but Cody dismissed her disgusting food and said he wasn't going anywhere. Still, his interest was piqued at the mention of the park, and he asked her to tell him more about it. She described a nearby playground and mentioned a zoo, though she added it smelled a bit. At this, Cody confessed he liked the Plaza de Balboa the most. Vanessa didn't know where that was, so he explained it was in the center of the city, nestled between rivers, with trees, benches, and fountains. He and his father used to go there often and feed the ducks. Vanessa tried to picture Oscar in such a tranquil setting. It seemed almost out of character. Still, she agreed to take Cody on the condition that he eat breakfast. Eventually, the two of them found themselves in the plaza, Cody happily feeding ducks breadcrumbs and politely asking them not to fight. Of course, the ducks kept bickering, as ducks do. Vanessa watched him with quiet concern. She could tell how much he missed his father, who was gone all day. Once Cody had tired of feeding the ungrateful ducks, he tossed the rest of the bread into the fountain and turned to Vanessa. "Can I have ice cream?" he asked. She glanced at the time. It was nearing dinner. She hesitated. "It might spoil your appetite," she warned. "Please," Cody added, his eyes wide. "Dad always buys me ice cream." He looked so endearing that Vanessa couldn't resist. She gave in, just one scoop. She pointed to a nearby stand and suggested they go there, but Cody shook his head. My dad buys it in the old quarter, he said. They have pistachio. Though it was a detour, Vanessa agreed. They headed into the busy, tourist-filled old quarter. At the cellar-style ice cream shop, Vanessa ordered pistachio with chocolate chips. She addressed the vendor in French, and Cody's puzzled reaction reminded her she still had a lot to learn. The cone was ready. Vanessa pulled out her phone to pay. Cody stared longingly at the ice cream until suddenly he turned pale, startled, and bolted away as if being chased. Vanessa spun around, stunned. She barely caught a glimpse of him vanishing into the crowd before giving chase. He was gone around the corner in seconds. Why would he run now? He'd asked for this ice cream. Then it clicked, Cody wasn't running from something. He was running to something. At that very moment, Oscar was en route to a meeting. Deep in thought, he didn't notice much until his driver informed him of an incoming video call. From whom? Oscar asked. Your uncle, the driver said. Oscar groaned but agreed to take the call. He opened his laptop. Uncle Johnny's image appeared on the screen, looking unusually tense. Oscar braced himself for bad news, but Johnny merely asked how things were going. Oscar replied that one more group still needed to be coordinated. Johnny warned him not to start a war, he knew his nephew's temperament too well. The Mexicans were weapons experts, but clumsy with luxury goods. Their connections in Chinese retail would help. Satisfied, Johnny raised a toast to the family's expanding empire and reminded Oscar that it would all go to Cody someday. Oscar promised he wouldn't forget. Then Johnny asked about Cody. Oscar gave a vague update. Johnny toasted again, to our little mafioso. After the call ended, a blooded assistant entered Johnny's office and announced that everything was ready. While these plans unfolded, Cody was enacting one of his own. Having escaped Vanessa, he ran breathlessly through the streets, eventually reaching a bus stop. The driver didn't question the lone boy, Cody paid and boarded. Seated by the window, he spotted Vanessa running and ducked out of view. All he cared about now was seeing his father. Vanessa, meanwhile, treated the situation like a game of hide and seek. She ran through possible escape routes. Could Cody ride a bike? Probably not. A taxi or a bus seemed more likely. Closing her eyes, she imagined his thought process. She remembered how desperate he had been to wear a tie and accompany his father that morning. It was obvious now, Cody had made up his mind to go find Oscar. She overheard two girls talking about a boy in a cute outfit who had just boarded a bus. Vanessa gently interrupted, asking which bus. One girl hesitated, but the nanny's kind persistence worked. She said the boy had taken a bus heading to the intercity station. Vanessa sprang into action. She had 15 minutes. On the street, she spotted a man with a bike and a small dog in its front basket. Politely, she asked to borrow it. The man was taken aback, but agreed. Vanessa gently returned the dog, promised to leave the bike at a parking lot, and sped off. She raced through traffic, weaving between honking cars. Reaching a jammed bridge, she knew she'd be too late unless she got creative. Testing her park hour skills, Vanessa launched off the bridge, soaring over a baby stroller, and landed with a thud on the sidewalk. Pedestrians screamed, but she didn't stop. At the same time, Cody sat on the bus, getting closer. Bored, he stretched his legs and soon reached his stop. As he stepped off, he was startled to see Vanessa sitting calmly at the bench, waiting. He froze. How had she found him? She stood and bent down to his level. Where were you going all by yourself? She asked, voice firm but calm. Then she grabbed him gently by the collar and added, no more ice cream. Cody struggled to break free. You crumpled my suit, he cried. A wrinkled suit is the least of your problems, she replied. Still trying to escape, Cody shouted, let go. Vanessa shook his jacket lightly, and the boy slipped out of it. Landing on his heel, he winced in pain. But he didn't cry from the fall, he cried because he felt betrayed. "I hate you," he yelled at Vanessa, tears pouring down his face. "He didn't take me because of you." Vanessa crouched beside him, heartbreaking. "I'm sorry to hear that," she whispered. Cody curled into a ball, sobbing, blaming her for everything. She tried to explain that her job was to protect him, that it was dangerous to run off like this. "My dad's in danger too," Cody sobbed. "And I'm not there." Vanessa tried to calm him. "Your father has bodyguards. He's safe. They're all traitors," Cody shouted. Then the boy directly shouted that after what happened to his mother, his father simply could not trust any of them. Cody repeated Uncle Johnny's words, "Only family can be trusted," so he tried to protect his dad. Vanessa realized that in the boy's opinion, the bodyguards had deliberately allowed his mother to die. She tried to reassure him that the guards had done their best back then, but Cody objected, saying she didn't know anything. The girl didn't know the full truth about how Cody's mother was killed, but she understood the pain he was feeling. Still, Vanessa decided to try convincing him that he was wrong. Sitting down beside him, she sincerely admitted that she wasn't like those guards from before. She promised to protect Cody with all her strength, even if it meant saving him from himself. She explained that he could hate her or fight with her, but he wouldn't be able to escape her. The boy objected and confidently said he'd still try. Silence fell between them for a few moments as they looked at each other. Eventually, Cody gave in and returned home with her. After dinner, Vanessa began washing the dishes while Cody asked to go to his room. Naturally, she wanted to keep him close, even though he promised not to run away again. She didn't doubt his sincerity, but she still wasn't going to take her eyes off him until his father arrived. Later, she put the boy to bed and left the light on so it wasn't too bright. Cody hadn't fallen asleep yet, he wanted to wait for his father. Vanessa promised that as soon as she saw Oscar, she would tell him Cody wanted him. She left him wrapped in his blanket, nearly up to his head. Vanessa, too, was exhausted. She sat down right outside Cody's door, remembering that she hadn't slept in 2 nights. Her eyelids felt impossibly heavy, and she closed her eyes for just a moment to ease the fatigue. Before she realized it, she had fallen into a deep sleep. That was how Mr. Paralan found her, curled up under the door. Without waking her, he went straight to check on his son. Cody wasn't fully asleep yet. Hearing his father's presence, he muttered that he had missed him. Oscar leaned over him and asked about his day with the nanny. Cody admitted he had almost gotten rid of her and added that Vanessa was stupid and that he tried to run away to help his dad. When asked how he knew where Oscar was, Cody said that Adam always entered the GPS coordinates ahead of time. Oscar was impressed with his son's cleverness and also noted that Cody had overheard the guards talking. He was proud of how attentive his son was. Cody admitted that Vanessa caught him and didn't let him go on the road. Oscar said he had to leave again but promised that when Cody woke up, he'd see him there. After saying goodnight, Oscar quietly closed the door. He still had one task left: what to do with the sleeping nanny. First, he put back on the shirt he had removed earlier, which was covered in blood. He didn't want Cody to see him in that state. Then he looked at Vanessa again. Curled up and sleeping, she looked harmless, like a kitten. No matter what, his son was safe. He bent down and tried to wake her gently, whispering in her ear. Vanessa stirred and opened her eyes but didn't have the strength to move. She turned her head and realized Oscar had returned. Oscar helped her up, intending to walk her to her room so she could sleep properly. Vanessa didn't want him to fuss over her and said she could walk alone. He didn't argue, but as soon as he let go, she nearly fell. He caught her immediately and insisted on escorting her. Vanessa knew she was too weak, having gone days without sleep. Still, Oscar didn't scold her. He understood that Cody had just wanted to see him. Vanessa, in turn, said she had put a tracker in Cody's shoe. Oscar approved, finding the decision smart. Supporting the nearly sleeping girl, Oscar walked her to her room. Along the way, Vanessa caught a scent on his clothes and recognized the metallic tang of blood. She scrunched her nose at the smell. Oscar only grinned and said it wasn't as pleasant as oranges, was it? Vanessa pushed him away and tried to walk on her own, muttering that Cody should be kept away from all this. Oscar leaned in again and asked her not to shout if she valued her life. Vanessa was surprised, she hadn't realized her voice was raised. Fatigue had dulled her senses. The boss didn't want to argue. He just told her to get some sleep. But Vanessa admitted she couldn't sleep in this house. Still, she was falling over from exhaustion and only dreamed of reaching her bed. She tried to explain that someone was constantly watching her, but the next thing she knew, she was lying on the bed and unable to speak. Only one thought circled in her fading mind: she had to sleep. Mr. Paralan was surprised Vanessa had sensed she was being watched. He admired her intuition. She'd need it. He knew she still had much to do, but for now, he left her to rest. The next morning, Vanessa was relieved to have finally gotten some sleep. She felt less tired, though the memory of Oscar carrying her to bed embarrassed her. What puzzled her more was how quiet her internal alarms had gone. Oscar was the man she should be most afraid of, and yet, in that moment, she hadn't felt scared. After spending time in the house, Vanessa was starting to see the family differently. Cody didn't seem like a victim, and Oscar, despite being a mafia member, didn't come across as a villain. She knew he wanted to protect his son, but bringing him to Chicago, such a dangerous place, felt contradictory. Thinking through it all, she felt something wasn't adding up. Then she remembered the moment Oscar woke her at Cody's door. That memory stirred something in her, an emotion she wasn't supposed to have. The Academy's rules were clear: no emotional attachment. There was no time for distractions. Vanessa reminded herself she had work to do and planned to request full access to Oscar's systems. She also vowed to harden her heart against these people. Just as she resolved to keep her distance, Cody came rushing at her in an inflatable duck, nearly knocking her over. He zoomed past her, bumping into corners, not even slowing down. Vanessa shouted after him, trying to get him to stop. She chased him into the courtyard and found a large pool surrounded by sun loungers. There, reclining under the sun, was Mr. Paralan. Vanessa paused at the sight of him. His lean, muscular figure and relaxed demeanor caught her off guard. Oscar explained that today was their pool day, nothing else was happening. After what had happened the night before, he needed a break. He told her how, in the middle of the night, he had spotted a suspicious car near the gate again. It was the third time that week. Oscar had drawn a map, tracking every incident, and slowly a clearer picture was forming. After glancing at the map again, he laughed, thinking maybe he was overdoing it. Still, he went to reassure his son, who wanted to spend more time with him. Oscar promised Cody they would relax together tomorrow. As they lounged by the pool, Vanessa still didn't understand why today of all days had been chosen. After all, the pool was always there. She watched as Cody launched himself into the water with a cannonball, sending splashes everywhere. Vanessa was almost soaked. Seizing the chance, she asked Oscar again for system access. She wanted to begin vulnerability analysis and draft recommendations. But Oscar just grinned and said she didn't understand anything. He leaned in closer and repeated, "Today is pool day. No work." Then he stepped into the water himself. Vanessa still couldn't see what this had to do with her. She wasn't part of their family. Just then, Adam appeared, realizing this was Vanessa's first time seeing such an event. She asked if it was on the schedule, but he explained that pool days were completely random. He handed her a towel, saying he brought it just for her and that she should join in. Her uniform, he said, would be too hot, she ought to change. Vanessa turned back to Oscar, feeling she couldn't just sit quietly near him. She explained to Adam that she had a lot of work. But the driver leaned in and told her that once someone crossed into the pool area on a pool day, they didn't just go back. Vanessa didn't understand the strange rule, but that was the whole point of pool day. Adam continued explaining that Oscar and Cody would eat and even sleep by the pool. Just then, Mrs. Kenneth appeared, assuming Vanessa had agreed to join without ever stepping over the threshold of the pool area. She tossed a neatly folded set of swimwear toward Vanessa with a triumphant smile and said, "I took the liberty of choosing your size. You'll feel much more comfortable in this." Vanessa caught the bundle reflexively and blinked, unsure whether she should be impressed or alarmed at how precisely everyone seemed to anticipate her involvement in the day's bizarre ritual. She looked around. Oscar was already back in the pool, swimming slow, powerful laps, while Cody floated nearby on an inflatable crocodile, shouting for his father to watch his tricks. With no other choice and all exits blocked by expectation, Vanessa sighed and retreated to the changing area. Inside, she stared at the swimsuit, practical, dark blue, modest by all means. Someone had clearly done their homework. She muttered to herself, "You have got to be kidding me," then started changing. After a while, standing in her swimsuit, Vanessa realized that her plans to get answers that day had failed, so she decided to try to get along with Cody instead, hoping he would not be so alien to her. Approaching the water, she saw the boy holding 3 rings in his hands and invited her to play again. Oscar, meanwhile, sipping coffee, watched with interest the actions of his son and his nanny. Vanessa was ready to jump into the water and decided to do it with a little effect. The next moment she cut through the air with her hands and rapidly descended into the water. Paralan watched with curiosity as the girl made her jump head down. A few seconds later, after the nanny disappeared underwater, she emerged holding a ring in her hand. Cody immediately asked if his father had seen it, and Oscar nodded affirmatively. Then the boy told the nanny that he would be able to get the next ring first. The next moment they were both underwater, each trying to reach the ring as quickly as possible. When they surfaced, the boy noticed that he was definitely missing something while underwater, carried away by the capture of the ring. The nanny managed to pull the duck circle from him and even teased him in a childish way, trying to play, but this only made the boy angry. Still, she did not separate him from the duck and soon joined the owner to sunbathe on a sunlounger. Oscar noticed that they were having fun. Vanessa noticed that the boy had quite a lot of energy, and while the adults were resting, Cody continued to splash in the water, not wanting to get out at all. Then Oscar remembered how recently the girl was very eager to gain access to his security system. This seemed a little suspicious to him because he decided the nanny had ulterior motives to get closer to him. From such words, Vanessa even stopped chewing her sandwich because the boss himself promised to give her full access. After listening to the girl, Oscar sprawled on a chaise lounge like a model and asked if such full access was enough for her. It was definitely a joke on his part, but Vanessa, who knew him to be serious, couldn't believe he was joking. For a moment, she even thought that her boss had been replaced and now a completely different person was sitting in front of her. Adam, the driver, reappeared on the doorstep and asked the boss to talk to him. The driver never bothered Oscar just like that, and he immediately got up to find out what had happened. Vanessa thought that after all the turmoil, Mr. Paralan would just leave, and so did Cody. Adam briefly explained the matter and advised that the boss needed to see it himself, but Oscar could not leave because it was pool day. Then he heard the words of his son, who also advised him to go. Mr. Paralan was even a little glad that his son understood him and was not angry, so he agreed. Before leaving, he turned to Vanessa and asked her to look after the boy. Then he disappeared behind the doors. The girl noticed that her boss looked a little frightened. Vanessa was well aware that something had happened and something was not good, but she didn't know what it was. Presently, Mr. Paralan, following the driver, headed toward one section of the fence near the gate. At the same time, he questioned Adam if he had time to see the license plate of the car which again stopped at his house. The driver admitted that at the moment he was in the kitchen but was sure those people had been watching for a long time. When Oscar reached the place, he saw a gutted teddy bear covered in blood hanging on the bars of the fence. He asked Adam to check for explosives or surveillance devices and to dispose of the toy later. Meanwhile, Vanessa noticed that the boy was still sad and suggested they dive for the rings again. Cody got tired of the game, so the nanny offered to come up with some new entertainment. Vanessa decided to guess his favorite things, and if she made a mistake, Cody could push her into the water. Although the game seemed silly to the boy, the girl decided to play anyway and offered to start with his favorite animal. Cody stared questioningly, and the nanny made a thoughtful look before guessing the giraffe, but it wasn't the animal Cody liked. He playfully pushed the babysitter into the pool. It seemed the boy was beginning to like the game, and he offered to guess his favorite food next. The girl was sure she knew this because she was his nanny after all and couldn't help but know. After going through all the dishes the boy ate with appetite, she guessed asparagus, but this time Vanessa was wrong. Cody pushed her into the water again, this time with even more enthusiasm. The girl somersaulted into the pool while pretending to be significantly hit by the boy's push. This made Cody laugh even more, and he no longer tried to hide his childish laughter. Then he confessed to the nanny that she was not as bad as he had thought before. The girl noticed Mr. Paralan behind him and realized he had not returned to continue bathing. Noticing the babysitter's gaze, Cody also turned around and was very glad his father had returned, but he still needed Vanessa. Mr. Paralan offered to call Adam to his son if he wanted to continue swimming. The girl was quick to get out of the water, especially since she was interested herself. She immediately asked the boss what had happened, but he did not want to talk about it in front of his son. Taking a towel from his neck, he threw it in the nurse's face and ordered her to come to his office in 10 minutes, dry. Given how much time she had, Vanessa knew she wouldn't have time to go to her room to get ready. Cody shared with the babysitter that Adam wouldn't agree to swim with him because he didn't like to wet his hair. The girl found this interesting and had a few thoughts flashing through her head. Then she leaned over to the boy and asked him to tell her his favorite food. Although he did not understand why she needed it, Vanessa smiled sweetly and explained she was going to cook dinner and wanted to pamper the little one with a treat. Cody admitted he really liked a frozen dessert similar to ice cream but also containing berries and nuts. The girl realized that this kid had beaten her but promised to get him the dish. He ran to change clothes, satisfied. 10 minutes later, Vanessa was knocking on the chief's office door, and he loudly invited her in. Mr. Paralan was sitting at his desk, looking at something on his laptop with a very serious face. He asked the nanny to come over and look at one of the camera recordings made about an hour ago. The girl could not believe there were cameras on the mansion's territory because she had not seen any. Oscar explained the cameras were only outside, but she wasn't sure if he was telling the truth. However, now she had a chance to gain access to the system, although she did not imagine it that way. Looking at the video, the girl realized there had been an intrusion on the property. She saw a very creepy shot that scared her genuinely. On the monitor, a bloody teddy bear was clearly visible hanging on the fence. The nurse immediately determined this was nothing more than a threat, and Mr. Paralan fully agreed. The girl also suggested this was a threat to Cody, which was why she was there to protect him. Vanessa had no doubts about her abilities and was ready to deal with the situation. At the same time, she noticed the boy's toy was not on the fence, meaning those people did not get into the house. She offered to look at the rest of the cameras, assuming someone might still be exposed. After a while, they saw a muscular man on the laptop screen holding a bear in his hands. The nanny noticed something and asked the boss to zoom in on the villain's shoulder. Even at maximum zoom, the image was not very high quality, but the girl admitted she knew a suitable program. Oscar gave her a laptop, and she immediately got to work. Without noticing, a drop of water rolled off her hair onto Oscar's shirt. He thought the nanny hadn't dried her hair well enough. Vanessa did not pay attention to this. Almost a minute later, she had everything ready. She enlarged the image, and now it was possible to see the tattoo on the criminal's shoulder. The nanny knew such tattoos were done in Russian prisons after 2 terms of imprisonment. Oscar thought her knowledge incredible but found it incredible that he had made enemies in just a month. The girl suggested that the Dawn Mafia Paralan had some significant problems with the Russians. She also assumed her boss had broken into their territory without knowing it or that he had something they needed. When the nanny asked again what he had forgotten in Chicago, he explained he only made acquaintances and influenced people. Still, the girl was not joking. Mr. Paralan decided it was his turn to ask questions. He was very curious how the nanny could know so much about organized crime. He began to seriously question her about where she got such knowledge that went beyond her duties as a nanny. The girl stammered, realizing she had unwittingly revealed too much and now had to excuse herself. She began by saying she had done research before accepting the job offer, but Oscar did not believe it because no more than an hour had passed. Vanessa backed up her words by saying many things were already known to everyone and she had read about them. Mr. Paralan could not stand it anymore and banged his fist on the table because it concerned his field of activity. Then he asked the girl again, and she admitted they had been taught this in an elite academy. Oscar still did not believe the nanny and grew more suspicious every minute. Grabbing the frightened Vanessa by the shoulders, he demanded she tell the truth or he would kick her out. He added he would never allow his son to be protected by a deceiver. The girl understood this was a decisive moment and she had to say something to her boss. At the same time, Oscar must not find out she was investigating the murder of her parents. Mr. Paralan squeezed her shoulders even harder and gave her 5 seconds to answer. Vanessa thought she could put him on his shoulder blades right then, but it would end in defeat for herself. After all, she would be immediately fired and no longer able to find answers to her troubling questions. In a slightly trembling voice, she admitted to Oscar that she could get into big trouble later. He did not understand that Vanessa could be threatened more than he was and asked for an explanation. The nanny admitted there would be problems with the law, the academy, and everyone in general, and it would end badly for her. Mr. Paralan still did not believe the girl and assumed she was a member of some gang. Vanessa did not expect this and was even surprised her boss could think such a thing about her. He continued that the nanny was in a syndicate or worked for competitors and was now spying on him. Vanessa cried out in fright that she was just a freelancer. Oscar realized this girl was a mercenary. The girl determined her boss did not quite understand her. Trying not to laugh, she lowered her head. The nanny continued her story that she was a freelance hacker and sometimes did something illegal. She added that such people were called black hackers who really needed money. Then she said that despite all her actions, no one was hurt. At that moment Oscar recalled the day his son was kidnapped and how Vanessa had cleverly helped locate him. Vanessa began explaining that her work wasn't so difficult if you knew the right places to look. She made it clear she didn't directly involve herself with criminal groups, syndicates, or gangs, but rather gathered information through darknet forums, where details about criminal organizations were abundant. Oscar asked if Vanessa's headmistress knew about this, and she requested he not tell Barbara. Watching his expression, Vanessa realized he was beginning to trust her again. He promised secrecy, though his face held an intensity that made Vanessa uneasy, and rightly so. Immediately after, Mr. Paralan asked Vanessa to find someone for him. She hoped the task wouldn't be hard and asked who exactly he wanted. Without a word, Oscar handed her a laptop displaying the criminal's image. Vanessa needed a copy of the video footage to work effectively. Oscar gave her a tablet with all necessary files and told her he'd watch after his son himself. Leaving the office, Vanessa thought he trusted her too quickly, but she was willing to take any job he gave in exchange for his silence. The tablet was connected to his network, something not everyone would risk giving a hacker, and Vanessa suspected it was another test. She unlocked the device and noticed a program recording everything she did. She decided not to disappoint Oscar and prepared to perform the task, treating it as a performance more than a challenge. Meanwhile, in the south of the country, Johnny's trusted employee Simon nervously knocked on his boss's office door. Simon reported problems, but Johnny initially thought he was complaining about his outfit. He wasn't. Spitting out seed husks into a jar, Johnny listened as Simon explained that a mirroring program had detected unusual data activity. Johnny suspected Oscar had found their spyware. Though Johnny doubted Oscar's tech skills, Simon warned that the background programs on Oscar's tablet could reveal a lot. Johnny was not worried, he had trained his nephew well and believed Oscar would not interfere. He banged the jar lightly but remained calm, confident Oscar would not jeopardize him. Back with Vanessa, she began setting up a facial recognition scanner based on European Union standards, planning to expand it as needed. She was confident the mask worn by the villain wouldn't fool the system. Even hidden identities eventually show up on cameras. While the search ran, Vanessa checked on Cody. Almost immediately, a match was found. Surprised by the speed, she examined the results. The suspect was writhing in various poses on camera and had a Facebook account openly posting videos and photos. Vanessa found this bold and suspicious, so she dug deeper. Outside, Cody watched the street curiously, noticing Mrs. Kenneth cleaning with a rag. Adam grabbed Cody by the collar, warning him not to meddle where he shouldn't. The boy broke free and ran off, planning to investigate the duckling case further. Vanessa continued researching when she heard Oscar's voice. Turning, she saw him holding a plate of food. He explained she had missed dinner, but Vanessa was more concerned about Cody eating well. Oscar assured her Mrs. Kenneth was looking after his son. Then Vanessa showed Oscar the suspect photos. The villain's tattoo was missing in the latest pictures. Oscar was skeptical, but Vanessa insisted it was the same man. The tattoo was new and still healing, explaining its absence. The man's body structure matched perfectly. Vanessa proposed the man knew he'd be caught on camera, so he faked the tattoo or hid it. Oscar realized the man had deliberately provoked a gang conflict. Vanessa added that the suspect was born in Tijuana, linking him to the Mexican group Oscar had nearly finished negotiating with. Upset, Oscar now saw the man as a two-faced traitor. He asked Vanessa to track the suspect's location, which she did quickly. Oscar felt reassured he'd made the right decision hiring her. Vanessa admitted she only took the job because the headmistress insisted. When she questioned why Oscar chose her, he told her to figure it out herself. She noted he'd accused her of lying, despite knowing her capabilities. Oscar explained her resume only mentioned network security, not her hacking skills. Their conversation was interrupted by Cody, who stormed in demanding answers. Adults reassured him nothing was wrong, but Cody was unconvinced, visibly upset. He threw the duckling toy on the floor and asked why Adam wouldn't let him outside. He noticed Mrs. Kenneth cleaning the main gate and saw 2 guards at the back door instead of 1. Oscar explained Adam kept Cody safe, the second guard was training, and Mrs. Kenneth was just cleaning. Vanessa noted Oscar's tone about her wasn't kind, but Oscar took Cody in his arms, stating his duty was to protect his son above all. Oscar then asked Vanessa to confirm his words, recalling Barbara's warning that Vanessa must prioritize and protect Cody and obey her superior. Though reluctant, Vanessa confirmed everything. She knew she must protect Cody, even if it played into Oscar's hands. Alone, Vanessa returned to work, sitting at her laptop late into the night. When ready, she knocked softly on Oscar's door. He promptly opened and asked what she found. Vanessa reported that all locations where the suspect had been seen were unrelated to his house or legal business, which suited Oscar's plans. He was already plotting, marking locations on his investigation board. She wanted to coordinate drawing classes for Cody the next day, believing he had talent. Oscar agreed and sent Adam with them. Vanessa expected a train ride, but Oscar insisted on his way. Outside, Oscar noticed Vanessa's softened attitude toward him but didn't dwell on it, he needed her focused. The next morning, Vanessa was in the kitchen preparing apples when Oscar appeared, asking for coffee. Not finding Mrs. Kenneth, Vanessa offered to make it herself. While cooking, she shared news about Mexican weapons caches lost overnight. Oscar smiled mysteriously, suggesting Vanessa might not find such news interesting, but quickly reassured her he had no involvement and lacked resources for such operations. Vanessa doubted but listened as Oscar confessed he had contacts with grandmother Ivanova, a powerful figure managing organizations in Western Europe. This surprised Vanessa, knowing the reach Ivanova had. Oscar also told Vanessa that Russians were very sensitive about their tattoos. After coffee, Oscar left for his drawing classes with Cody. Vanessa pondered the man's extensive connections. At the class, Cody was reluctant, preferring to draw at home. Vanessa insisted he try to make new friends. Cody doubted kindness in the world, but Vanessa encouraged politeness. Other kids admired Cody's costume and guessed Vanessa was British and sent on purpose. Cody proudly explained his costume preserved the Paralan family's honor. Another boy, Clark, defended Cody and gave him an apron. Cody thought Clark's father was a sailor, but Clark corrected him. His dad was a dentist and one of the best. Clark smiled, proudly showing he brushed his teeth well. The teacher invited kids to draw something for their parents. After class, Vanessa checked on Cody, who grumbled he had to return next week. He suspected Clark was colorblind and needed training to work with shadows. In the car, Adam asked Cody what he had drawn. Cody hadn't drawn anything yet but hoped to create a masterpiece next week. Adam shared what he enjoyed most about painting, mosaics, encouraging the boy to explore. Vanessa smiled, watching Cody slowly open up amid the strange, tense world around them. Suddenly, the driver abruptly fell silent as he noticed something bad in the rearview mirror. Vanessa noticed this and began to ask what he had seen behind them. Without explaining much, Adam only asked the passengers to hold on tightly, then slammed on the gas, causing Vanessa and Cody to slam into the back of the seat. The girl asked Adam to explain, but he wanted to be sure of his suspicions first. The nanny then looked out the window at the car likely chasing them. The driver realized his sharp maneuver hadn't prevented the pursuers from following and began to think of his next move. He needed to get away at all costs and keep Cody safe. He made a few more maneuvers, but the dark car remained close. Vanessa was worried. Fortunately, there were few cars on the road. Adam, having increased speed, rushed along the highway. He planned to quickly drop off the passengers, then distract the pursuers himself. Cody wanted to know why they couldn't go with his dad, but Adam knew it was undesirable to bring those people to the mansion. Vanessa thought if shooting started, the boy might get caught in the crossfire. The nanny unbuckled her seatbelt and asked Cody to get ready. He realized she was going to jump out of the moving car, but she promised Adam would slow down. The driver turned sharply into an alley with a suitable place to drop them off. Without hesitation, Vanessa jumped out holding Cody tightly. She immediately hid behind a corner, hoping the chasing car wouldn't notice them. Soon, the car drove past without slowing. Cody breathed a sigh of relief, thinking they were safe. Vanessa peeked out to check. Cody tried to say something, but Vanessa quickly covered his mouth to keep him quiet. The dark car reappeared in the alley where they were hiding. Vanessa noticed it was another car searching for them. She feared the first car might see her jump out. The second car drove past without noticing them. Vanessa sighed with relief that they hadn't been found. She let go of Cody's mouth, and he asked who the cars belonged to. Vanessa didn't know, but guessed given the circumstances who might be chasing them. She took Cody by the hand and suggested they return home while she thought of a safe route. Meanwhile, Mr. Paralan was instructing the guards. Soon, he saw Vanessa and his son walking near the house. Cody rushed to his father, pushing Vanessa aside without a word. Oscar noticed the boy was scared and hugged him, asking if he was okay. Adam had contacted Oscar earlier and updated him. Oscar wanted to know what happened next. Vanessa told him there was a second car, but they escaped without problems. Cody, however, mentioned the neighbor's lawn had many garden gnomes, which he found terrible. Oscar realized that had scared the boy more than the chase. He sent Cody inside to change clothes. Vanessa approached Oscar, saying this time the threat was real because he had made enemies. She noticed Oscar seemed guilty but didn't admit it. Mr. Paralan decided to increase security. Vanessa planned to cancel the drawing classes. All she could do was minimize damage because what was done couldn't be undone. Cody returned, having forgotten to bring something for his father. He gave Oscar a drawing of his mother. Oscar noticed it was beautiful and very similar to his wife. Cody promised Vanessa he'd draw her next week. She wanted to explain he wouldn't have class, but Oscar put his hand on her shoulder, signaling her to stay silent. Oscar wanted to hang the drawing in his office. Cody went off to find a frame. When he left, Oscar told Vanessa not to cancel classes but to stay by his son's side. She didn't object, though she wanted the boy to be safe. Oscar prepared to make a call, dialing his uncle's number. The call surprised Johnny, but he knew Oscar needed help. Oscar asked him to send Nick and Anna, though they had agreed on minimal support. Oscar explained the city situation was heating up and he needed the two now. Johnny realized the clashes between Russians and Mexicans were escalating and hoped Oscar wasn't involved. Oscar assured him he stayed out of such matters but was concerned about group actions. Johnny offered a doctor, but Oscar had no job for her. He said the doctor would find something to do herself. Nick and Anna could only arrive next week. Johnny asked about little Cody's affairs before ending the call. Oscar thought his uncle knew about the pursuit and was already considering the Mexicans. A driver ran up, out of breath, reporting he had lost the pursuers. He told Oscar that Cody and Vanessa were safe at home. Oscar thanked the driver, who said he was just doing his job. Adam joked Vanessa should be thanked as a champion at jumping out of cars. The driver agreed Oscar was lucky to have her, wherever he found her. Oscar disagreed, trusting his inner voice. Looking at the house windows, Oscar noticed Vanessa standing there, watching in his direction. Late afternoon, Vanessa settled on the bed with the tablet. She found no files on Oscar's network older than a couple of months and no mention of a fire in his family. She understood data was periodically deleted. She saw no point in accessing the network but thought such an organization must store data somewhere else. Maybe not locally. Vanessa recalled the mirroring program and decided to try accessing data through it. She knew if data wasn't stored on the network, it was sent elsewhere. She began hacking again to trace where the data went. After hard work, Vanessa found a larger network with serious firewalls and fake IPs. Oscar did not have access. She decided to find who controlled it by preparing a small gift for the mysterious collectors. A week later, Vanessa took Cody to drawing class. She told him to behave, but he objected, confident he was great. Vanessa had noticed his self-confidence but hoped he wouldn't do anything foolish. Entering the classroom, Cody threw his apron at Clark, not wanting to stain his clothes. He noticed Clark wore a gardener's uniform and learned Clark's mother had picked it out. A mustachioed man entered with a brush and invited the children to introduce themselves. Another nanny asked Vanessa how long she had worked as a nanny. When she said 2 weeks, the other nanny, Olivia, was surprised, as Vanessa looked very professional. Olivia had worked for 8 months in the same family but the child still hated her. Olivia had to take the child to piano and tennis lessons, during which the child cried. The girl under Olivia's care refused homework, only ate yellow food, and called Olivia by the previous nanny's name. Vanessa realized Olivia was struggling. Vanessa had her own difficulties, such as running and hiding from pursuers, but tried to stay positive. Suddenly, the classroom window shattered. Shards flew and stuck in Vanessa's face, but she was more worried about Cody. She ran inside to see a man holding the baby threatening others with a gun. The children were terrified and cried. Vanessa prepared to stop the villain, but he ordered her to stay or the boy would suffer. She stopped and asked him to release Cody. The boy shouted to Vanessa as if warning her. Suddenly, a shot rang out, blood flowing on Vanessa's arm. Olivia had shot, aiming to remove Vanessa. Another shot followed, and Vanessa fell, unable to move. The man and boy fled. Cody shouted to Vanessa, thinking she was dead. Olivia caught the villain and suggested retreating through the back door to avoid the family driver. Vanessa regained consciousness, head spinning. Leaning on the wall, she tried to find Cody. Adam appeared, having heard the shots. He caught Vanessa as she nearly fell, asking where Cody was. Seeing Vanessa was shot, Adam began to stop the bleeding. Vanessa thought it was a scratch. She took out a phone showing a beacon indicating Cody's location underground near a river. The driver offered to send the location to Oscar immediately. Adam wrapped Vanessa's hand, but she insisted on rushing to find Cody now, asking Adam to catch up later. The driver urged her to wait, but she ran toward a nearby tunnel. Vanessa knew she could reach Cody faster on foot. At the tunnel, a rusty lock barred her way. She kicked it with all her strength. It broke on the first blow, and Vanessa fell inside. Almost there, she saw a boy tied with rope who shouted a warning. The man who took the boy appeared, waving a gun at Vanessa. She grabbed his arm and then his hand, pressing down to intercept the pistol. Now threatening the bandit with his own gun, she ordered him to stand still or die. Suddenly, Olivia's voice called out. Vanessa turned toward her. The bandit warned Vanessa not to do anything foolish or the child would be harmed. Vanessa asked who they were and what they wanted. Cody shouted they were a Mexican gang wanting revenge on his father, the best mafioso. Olivia revealed Oscar wanted to take over their businesses. The boy shouted they were just opening a shop and ordered the bandits to stay away. Then his father's voice was heard, praising the speech as excellent. Everyone immediately turned toward Oscar. He hadn't come alone. Nick and Anna stood beside him, ready to handle the situation themselves. Vanessa hadn't seen them yet and asked Mr. Paralan who they were. She noticed they looked like professionals who knew their business well. Anna lightly criticized that they had gotten into a mess on their first day and were prepared to fight. Nick noticed Cody, whom he considered his favorite little mafioso, and made a fuss in his direction. Mr. Paralan expressed how much he missed the two men, recalling their temper and habits. The villain began yelling that they should all go back south since the city was already occupied, but Oscar doubted this, saying they couldn't even save their weapon depots. Vanessa watched, noticing her boss trying to provoke the bandits. Olivia interjected, warning that although the gang was now on Oscar's side, they might change their minds later. Cody shouted defiantly that they would do as they wished and the bandit would see what happens to their enemies. Olivia tried to threaten the boy, but Vanessa immediately stood up, claiming she wouldn't do anything. She realized they didn't intend to kill her, otherwise, they would have done so as soon as she entered. Vanessa also realized this place was their main base. They hadn't expected to find her so quickly, and after losing many caches, it wasn't profitable to start shooting here, as the police could identify them immediately. Nick and Anna whispered how smart Vanessa was. Oscar had already told them about her. Olivia, still intolerant of their attitude, ordered Vanessa to be silent. Mr. Paralan decided to intervene, suggesting they not resort to guns and settle things like civilized mafiosi. Nick noticed they were outnumbered, 4 against 8, even with an injured nanny. Anna called it cowardice, but Olivia refused to be a fool and asked the others to lay down their arms first. Vanessa thought it best to comply, not wanting Cody to get hurt. Mr. Paralan holstered his pistol and put on the safety. The bandit who had stolen the baby was confident they could beat them with bare hands. Olivia ordered her men to attack immediately. Vanessa grabbed Cody and jumped aside, keeping him safe. The fight began mercilessly. Mr. Paralan and Anna fought skillfully, giving their opponents no chance. Nick also kept pace, skillfully defending against the bandits. One Mexican bandit approached Vanessa. Though wounded, she prepared to fight. As he neared, She struck him with her leg, knocking him down, then pressed him harder to the floor. Oscar and his assistant continued fighting the remaining bandits, who proved formidable. Vanessa decided it was safer to carry Cody away, putting him on her back. Before she could reach the exit, another bandit appeared, quickly handled by Nick. Before Vanessa could leave, the entire Mexican group lay immobilized on the ground. Cody jumped down and ran to his father, praising his quick action. Nick approached Vanessa, praising her fighting skills as a nanny. Anna said Vanessa reminded her of someone but couldn't recall who and wondered if Vanessa had been to Buffalo. Vanessa tried to answer but suddenly collapsed. Nick caught her just in time, realizing she had lost a lot of blood. Oscar ordered the bandits taken to the annex, leaving the assistants to handle it. He carried Vanessa to the car himself, insisting she rest after all she had done. When Vanessa next opened her eyes, she was in bed, her arm and head bandaged, and her body aching. Nick explained Anna had stitched her arm but was not a doctor. Vanessa didn't know who Anna was. Nick introduced her as his partner and himself as well. He knew from Oscar who Vanessa was, the hacker who caught bullets. Vanessa saw it as just a job, but Nick doubted they shared the same work. Nick visited to warn Vanessa she needed to rest at least a day. Vanessa worried about Cody, but he was now watching TV with his father. After Nick left, Vanessa realized Oscar had decided to increase security. He seemed well acquainted with their enemies. Though worried she had to stay in bed, Vanessa took her tablet to try again to find the full database through the mirroring program. She soon identified a network of devices, security cameras, personal computers, dozens of accounts, and located the main complex in the south. Curious where the data was stored, she considered the possibility of a deleted archive. Searching city of Albuquerque, she found the archive contained over 200 files about racing, jewelry, gambling, and deals spanning decades. Looking through this, Vanessa concluded her parents had been mafiosi, which displeased her. She guessed they were criminals involved in money laundering, casinos, horse racing, and black market jewelry. Their affairs eventually went awry, with sad consequences. Vanessa narrowed her search to find needed information faster, but suddenly the screen went dark and a warning appeared. Someone had disconnected her from the network. She didn't know who or why but suspected a hack. She decided to take Oscar's cybersecurity seriously. In Albuquerque, a young man surrounded by monitors noticed her hacking attempt. It was Simon, curious about what she sought and how she entered their system. Vanessa, having finished, asked Julia where Oscar's new people were. Julia said they were in the kitchen. Nick and Anna were discussing plans when Vanessa arrived. Anna was surprised Vanessa got up so early despite her injury. Vanessa thanked them, saying without their help Cody could have been seriously harmed. The nanny also thanked Anna for her support. Anna assured them they were there for that. Nick said they were deciding how to avoid similar incidents. Vanessa admitted it was a mistake to return to drawing classes since they could be tracked and an ambush expected. This saddened her, as she didn't want to be so predictable. Anna reassured her that Mr. Paralan himself had insisted on continuing studies. Nick added that with them there, Vanessa no longer needed to cover for him. Vanessa asked how long Nick and Anna had worked for Mr. Paralan. Anna said they had been with him even before he became the Dawn's right-hand man. Nick added Oscar had made them his representatives before sending them to Chicago. Vanessa was surprised Oscar had become a deputy only a year ago. She remembered his wife disappeared around that time and he was immediately appointed deputy. She found it strange, but Anna warned her not to tell anyone. Vanessa noticed something in the closet, a slightly open door. She changed the subject and apologized for her odd suspicion, admitting she needed to cook boiled eggplant for Cody's breakfast. From the closet, children's voices protested the dish. Vanessa opened the wardrobe door abruptly, greeting the boy. Cody sat among the dishes, realizing his spying had been discovered. He fell out of the closet, and Anna said it was time to get back to work. Nick smirked at Cody before leaving, joking he was unlucky this time. When alone with Cody, Vanessa explained eavesdropping was rude, but the boy claimed he already knew their conversation, which surprised her. Cody revealed that last year, bad men took his mother, and his father became a deputy to become stronger and find her. Both missed Mrs. Paralan. Oscar didn't trust the police and all his searches failed, which hurt him deeply. Cody said his father and men only returned her ring, and he cried. Vanessa comforted him, telling him crying would help. Cody insisted he was a man and men shouldn't cry, wiping his tears and pulling himself together. Mr. Paralan told his son that they wanted to take him next, but Vanessa promised it wouldn't happen. Cody doubted this because Vanessa didn't know the bad men or how to stop them. Bad things happened often. Cody decided he needed to be even worse than those bad men. Vanessa was shocked by the boy's reasoning, realizing how hard his life was. Cody hoped one day to become the Dawn's right-hand man, find those who took his mother, and ensure no one else's mother would be taken again. Vanessa recalled a night when Mr. Paralan mentioned a purpose for Cody but didn't finish the conversation. She now tried to guess what he meant, aware it would be harder than imagined. In Albuquerque, Simon noticed the system hack and thought how to fix it. He went to the doctor's room and knocked, hoping she was home. Wanda opened and asked why he came. Simon needed to see the boss, assuming she might be with the doctor. She invited him in, but he declined to avoid seeing the sight that could disturb him. Johnny appeared and asked why Simon had taken a break. Simon reported someone broke into their encrypted servers and it seemed an inside job. The boss noted Simon's job was to prevent such breaches. Simon said he cut off the network immediately. He explained their network was impenetrable but they still received data from the files. He noticed the package from Chicago was larger than usual. Simon guessed someone was trying to slip executable files. The boss asked him to keep things simple. Simon showed that Chicago branch programs updated faster than he could track. There were many security programs as if they were hiding something. Johnny thought Oscar's return of his people was suspicious. The boss decided Oscar had relaxed and needed reminding he was being watched. Johnny began planning what to do about Oscar. Meanwhile, Mr. Paralan was talking to Anna in the study about upcoming business. She had a few friends in town and promised to ask around, hoping to find out something. At that moment, Oscar's phone vibrated in his pocket. Seeing the call was from his uncle, he politely asked Anna to leave him, since the call was important. Left alone, Oscar answered and immediately asked why his uncle was contacting him so soon. Without further ado, his uncle told him about a new task and said he would send instructions at the same hour. Oscar opened the message on his tablet but decided to refuse, saying it was not in his competence. Johnny assured him he was mistaken and that the right person was now in the north of the country. The uncle was sure this case was for Oscar and asked why he was strengthening his security. Johnny suggested Oscar might be setting up a new base, but Oscar objected, saying he didn't need Nick and Anna for that. The uncle directly pointed out that someone had upgraded Oscar's internal network without permission. He also hinted Oscar was trying to rummage through his data and realized Vanessa was involved. But Oscar explained he had a new specialist who probably overdid it a little but that he would settle everything. Johnny reminded Oscar he could not hide from him and made the new task a priority. The next day, Cody was a little bored since his father ordered him to stay home until the babysitter got better. Vanessa did not want him to be bored and offered to play a game other than swimming. Cody asked what games she meant, and Vanessa listed a few, including hide-and-seek and charades. But the boy found all of them dumb and uninteresting and buried his face in the back of the sofa again. Suddenly, he jumped up happily and exclaimed he had figured out what to play: spies. Vanessa guessed he wanted to spy on his father, but Cody pointed to the guards in the garden. They were building something, but he was sure they were up to something else. He led Vanessa to the window. Several workers were running around with boards and shovels. Nothing seemed suspicious. But Cody was sure he was right and hoped Vanessa wanted to find out too. Vanessa agreed, and Cody was happy. Then he added they would need ninja masks to play. Soon, they hid down the corridor with balaclavas on their heads, trying to step quietly and unnoticed. Mrs. Kenneth passed them and promised no one would find their bodies if she found they had been in her room. Vanessa and Cody crept up to the window, and Cody saw a pile of wood, as if people were building something. Vanessa looked at the initial structure and suggested it might be a shed for garden tools. But there was a separate room in the garage for inventory. Now Cody thought deeply about why he needed the shed. Vanessa also thought it unnecessary to take a team of guards to build it. Then Anna appeared behind them in a swimsuit and invited Cody to swim. He happily rushed to change. Vanessa noticed Anna's questioning look and tried to explain she was just playing with Cody. Anna advised her not to get involved or ask unnecessary questions. Anna notified Vanessa that Oscar wanted to see her and said she would look after Cody for now. Vanessa decided not to keep Mr. Paralan waiting and soon knocked on his office door. He opened it immediately and invited her in, but seemed too polite. Oscar asked how her shoulder was. She said it was fine and the bullet hadn't hit the bone. He thanked her for keeping her promise to protect Cody even at the cost of her life. Vanessa said she acted instinctively, because Cody was just a child. Vanessa realized the conversation was becoming domestic and asked what Oscar wanted. He asked her to find another person for him, stressing its importance. Vanessa assumed a new threat had arisen and looked through the window at Cody in the pool. But Oscar didn't mean his son. He handed Vanessa a photo of a man who looked somewhat like Oscar. It was his cousin, whom Oscar believed was in danger. He added the case had nothing to do with Cody now. He asked Vanessa for a favor. Although she had promised herself not to help unless it involved Cody, seeing the worry on Oscar's face, she agreed but said it would be a one-time help. Oscar thanked her politely. Later, Vanessa studied with Cody again, this time conducting chemical experiments creating a volcano. The boy wondered why it exploded. Vanessa explained it was the right combination of reagents. Cody remarked it reminded him of Nick and Anna, who he thought were quite explosive. Nick came in with Oscar and added he could be dangerous without his partner. Oscar was about to leave but needed to talk to Vanessa first. She understood, took off her rubber gloves, and handed Oscar a small piece of paper with the information he needed. She added the man was now in St. Louis. Oscar thanked her and ordered Nick to prepare to leave in 10 minutes. He leaned over to his son and promised that when he woke up in the morning, he would see his father returning. Cody asked what was wrong in St. Louis, but his father said nothing special, only asked him not to blow up the house. Cody joked that it was the kitchen, but Mrs. Kenneth should be consulted. His father asked him not to go to the garden while construction was underway. Vanessa looked out the window and saw the shed looked completed outside but work was still underway inside. She saw a lot of earth being removed and suggested it might be a deep foundation. She realized she was unlikely to understand what was happening in the house at all. Then she noticed Cody was about to drop the reagent into the volcano and shouted for him to put on his goggles. Late in the evening, Mr. Paralan's car reached St. Louis and soon arrived at the right place. Nick assumed the man must be there if his routine was correct. Oscar was sure, but Nick asked him to be careful, still unsure about Vanessa. Soon the car they awaited drove into the parking lot. Adam turned to Oscar confidently and said this was the right person. He asked if further action was needed, but Oscar calmly ordered the driver to open the trunk and prepared himself. Half a minute later, Oscar met Richard, his cousin, who was surprised, not understanding how he was found. Oscar explained he could never hide from his family and, with Nick, captured him. Richard begged to be let go and claimed he wanted nothing to do with the Paralans. Oscar ignored him and stuffed him into the trunk, though Richard said it was not too late to release him. Oscar couldn't, he was only following orders. Leaning over the closed trunk, Oscar wondered if he was doing the right thing with his relative. His thoughts were interrupted by Nick, who urged him to hurry before someone noticed. Oscar stood over the trunk, thinking about what would happen next. He agreed it was time to go but did not want to break the promise he made to his son. A few hours later, Mr. Paralan's car returned to his mansion. Vanessa was still awake at her laptop and heard a car pull up. Looking out, she noticed the driver did not drop Oscar at the main entrance as usual. Adam and Nick had already taken Richard, kicking and wrapped in a blanket, out of the trunk to hide him. It was quite dark, and Vanessa could only see the bundle being taken to the barn. The driver found it strange that Oscar would keep the kidnapped man in his backyard. Vanessa tried to see what they were doing so late, thinking they were just working. Suddenly, she felt a hand on her shoulder and shuddered in surprise.